2. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Gotham Baseball Live. We had a little bit of a vacation last week. Both myself and Peter had we were on assignment.
Yeah.
I
Is
was
that what you call it? Is
yeah
that what you call it?
yeah. Well, we were both working.
Yeah.
I was up in Saratoga Springs for the New York Press Association convention, and
I
you
was
were
in
doing
I was in
you were
Des
doing some
Moines,
travels,
Iowa.
right?
Yeah, I was in Des Moines, Iowa, to call an indoor football league game on Saturday night between the Iowa Barnstormers and Fisher's Freight. And I also was able to take in a little baseball on the trip. I went to the Iowa Cubs game last Friday night. They were taking on Louisville, and I got to tell you something. I must have didn't get the memo, but for years Louisville was the Cardinals
Yes,
AAA team,
it
and I
was.
was expecting it to be the Cardinals. And now it's the Cincinnati Reds. And I had no idea until I was trying to find their handle on Twitter. I'm like, why isn't Cardinals or Redbirds coming up? And I had no idea that they were the Reds AAA team. But nice ballpark there in Des Moines. I enjoyed it. It was fun, and had a nice work weekend with football. And now we're back to baseball here.
Yeah, minor league baseball is awesome. And I get such a kick out of it. I mean, for years I covered it. I started with the 2001 Brooklyn Cyclones, their first year
Mm-hmm.
of existence, and, I covered the Staten Island Yankees. I covered a whole bunch of teams. So minor league baseball is a lot of fun. You get to see a lot of these guys when they're coming up. And we're going to ask that about that experience with our guest today, Stephen Cusumano, who is the play-by-play guy for the Somerset Patriots, the Double-A affiliate of the New York Yankees. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, a lot of excitement for Yankee fans with some of these prospects that have come through Somerset. George Lombard Jr. just got promoted to AAA, so Stephen has seen a lot of these prospects come through Somerset, whether they're still there or they've moved up and maybe even on the Yankees now. So he'll be a great guy to talk to about what's going on down at Somerset. And I remember when Somerset was in the Atlantic League, playing against the Long Island Ducks. So a lot
Yep.
to talk about with Stephen in a few minutes.
As do I. And I have a great story that I'll tell later about those Atlantic League Somerset Patriots. But
Yeah.
on the other side of town, things are not doing so well for the
No.
New York Mets. Their worst April in God knows how long. A lot of people are saying the season's over. I'm not. I'm certainly going to wait till Memorial Day. We have 20. I think we have, what is it, 29 days between now and Memorial Day. And I think the Mets are going to be playing 25 games or 24 games, during that period. So really, for me, if they can't get themselves righted between now and Memorial Day, then I guess I will join the throng of people that say, any chance at the playoffs is probably over.
Yeah. Well, they're 10-21, and obviously it doesn't look good. But I think the one thing that the Mets and their fans can certainly hang their hat on was the Washington Nationals from a few years ago when they got off to a god awful start and they were able to win the
Right.
World Series. So it is doable. There is some history on their side, but a lot of things are going to have to change. They're going to
Sure.
have to start hitting, and they have not hit for the most part, and the pitching has to get better. And I guess time will tell as to whether or not Mendoza will oversee this, going forward. I thought, Mark, when they came back from the last road trip, I thought that was it. They were playing so bad on that trip. I thought that's when they were going to fire him. There were certainly some times to fire him on this homestand. But then I got to thinking about it. Mark, if they fired Carlos Mendoza right now, whoever they bring in, is it going to make a huge difference? So like I thought about the rush to fire him, and then I'm thinking, is there really a rush to fire him? Is there any manager that's out there that can turn this around from 10-21?
Not that's going to work with David Stearns. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, are there guys that they could bring in? Sure. Joe Girardi could come in. Joe Madden could come in. Somebody like that. Somebody who has, Bruce Bochy, get him out of retirement. A guy like that has a track record, has a ring. Those guys certainly would be, in the old ways of baseball, those guys would
Mm-hmm.
certainly be candidates, but that's not the way it works now. And certainly not the way David Stearns works. So whoever does take over for Mendoza, whether it's Kai Correa, whether it's Andy Green, whether it's, you know, GPR and CBA, whoever it is,
Yeah.
it's gonna be the same kind of relationship that they have with Stearns. Whereas, the front office is gonna make really the decisions when it comes to pretty much everything. So, look, I'm not one of those people that say that David Stearns won't fire him at all, because I do think at some point, something has to change. But I think Memorial Day is like another one of those things where, if they think Kai Correa is a guy that, could grow with this team, Peter, I could see him certainly managing this team. Dick Scott from AAA, for the
Mhm.
rest of the season, because I think eventually Carlos Beltran is going to be managing this team. That's just my thought. Like, no
Yeah.
inside information. I think that's what's going to eventually happen.
Yeah, like it was supposed to be, a few years ago,
Right.
before the Astro situation came up. Yeah, Alex Cora's name will probably be brought up, but he turned down, the Phillies job, and I think he's going to take some time away from managing right now. But yeah, I think for the time being, I think Mendoza is safe. I
Yep.
agree with you. I think you take the month here and see what happens. And look, at the end of the day, David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza is not David Stearns' guy. So David Stearns has every right as the general manager to bring his own guy in. You can kind of like it to what just went on with the Islanders this year. Matthew Darsh inherited Patrick Waugh, agreed to keep him for the year, and at the end of the year realized this is his chance to
Right.
bring his own coach in, and he brings in Peter DeBoer with 4 games to go in the season.
Right.
So, not that the Islanders had as bad a record at that point as the Mets do now, but you
Right.
can see where the general manager's got a right to bring his own guy in.
Well, Mendoza is his own guy, if you remember correctly. Buck Showalter, Stearns fired Buck Showalter as soon as he got the job. He did bring in Mendoza, and he stuck by Mendoza. That's why I don't think that he's in a rush to fire Mendoza. That's why Mendoza's safe. The other reason why Mendoza's safe for the time being is the media likes him. The media likes this guy genuinely. He's not Bobby Valentine that like challenges them every night. So, if you talk to the guys on the beat, they all like him. So they're not writing stories, and the columnists are not writing stories saying, Mendoza's got to go. But but the interesting thing is, just to switch things over to the Yankees, I thought what Michael Kay had to say recently about defending Brian Cashman, basically talking about the Met fans and Yankee fans criticizing Brian Cashman for his analytics approach, but yet Cashman has done, whatever you want to say about the Yankees. Cashman has them in a position every single year to be competitive, and that's saying a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when Brian Cashman got his start working under George, and it wasn't that way back then. It was strictly everything was about baseball and gut feelings and just being an old time general manager. And I agree. Cashman has evolved into leaning towards the analytics, and the Yankees have built up their analytics department as much as anybody in baseball. And he has, and again, that's the one thing you can always ask for if you're a fan of a team at the beginning of the season. Does your team have a chance to win? Not necessarily you're going to win every single year, but do you have a chance? And for the most part, in his entire career, the Yankees have had a chance to win every single season. They've had a winning record every year.
Right. And part of that is they've had a pretty good minor league system, bringing up guys, developing guys. And with no further ado, we'd like to bring in Stephen Cusumano, who is the play-by-play guy for the Somerset Patriots, the AA affiliate for the New York Yankees. And we welcome him to the show. Stephen, it's Mark Healy and Peter Schwartz. Welcome to the show.
You guys hear me?
They're a
Your
little
volume's a
low.
little low.
Let's see. How about now?
There you
Oh,
go.
there you go.
Now we're good. All
Hey,
right.
how you
Great.
doing, Steven?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're
Great.
doing great. This is obviously a really good time to talk to you because with everything going on with the Yankees and all the prospects that are either at Somerset or have come through the Patriots, how much fun has this been for you as a broadcaster to see these guys coming through? Whether it's like Spencer Jones, who's now at AAA, and George Lombard was having a tremendous season, just got promoted For you as the broadcaster, how much fun has this been watching these Yankee prospects come through Somerset?
Oh, it's a blast because I mean, this is my fifth season here, and having seen the success stories of guys like Ben Rice and Cam Schlittler, Austin Wells, and over the years, and even seeing some of them come back as rehabbers like Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe when I also saw them as prospects. It's fun to see both sides of the coin play out, and just seeing them evolve as people too. They're fresh out of school, a lot of these guys, and just from a sheer talent perspective, to see like the kind of talent that's coming up through the Yankee system and the way they develop these players is fantastic. And our fans love it here in Central Jersey. It's you don't get to see Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon back-to-back
Yeah.
days in many minor league settings, but you do here. And getting to see George and Spencer the last couple of years, and the future's bright. And again, with the Yankees and the way they specifically develop players, it's fantastic.
Stephen, Double A is really, in all the years I covered the minor leagues, Double A is where the best players are, right? The best prospects. You get to see a fantastic, really quality level of baseball. And, I know we're not scouts, none of us are, as broadcasters, as journalists, as people who cover the game, you know, we've seen guys come and go, right? But do you ever sit there? Because I know I did when I was in Brooklyn, or when I would go to Binghamton and cover Double A Binghamton. You'd pinpoint guys and say, "Oh, this guy is going to be a major leaguer," or like, do you ever like find yourself doing that? And have you been successful in projecting some of those players?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to predict someone like the makeup and talent of George Lombard Jr. You don't have to be a scout to say that Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez are going to be a great big leaguer, but it's the other guys. Like when Cam Schlittler first got to Somerset and when Ben Rice first got to Somerset, I'll use them two as the real prime examples. Like no one was talking about Ben Rice and Cam Schlittler, but you meet these guys, you see their work ethic, their focus, their demeanor. I feel like especially playing baseball in New York, that's a prerequisite. You have to be mentally tough. You have to be able to withstand the grind and the tribulations that come with being scrutinized in a market that is like New York. And then the talent, I think, is another side of the coin. Like you said, Double A is the level where a lot of players get here, and there's a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, George Lombard Jr., you look at his numbers this year, has been absolutely incredible, but he spent over 100 games at Double A last year, and the numbers weren't there. He didn't look like the player he is today. So for a lot of guys, it can take 100 games to really adjust to the pitching. And on the flip side, for pitchers, there's definitely a learning curve that comes with pitching to batters who are not going to chase out of the strike zone, and you know hitting against pitchers who are going to game plan like some of those that are going to be big leaguers. So you really get a glimpse at beyond the baseball side of it, the preparation side, the guys that have the makeup to really stick as a longtime major leaguer. And again, like it's fun when that's a middle round pick like a Will Warren, somebody that comes in here and
Mhm.
really proves themselves and puts them on the prospect radar. And then all of a sudden, you've got Ben Rice in the MVP conversation this year. So it's very fun to see those types of players separate themselves once they get to this level, which is a really big step in their careers.
I just want to follow up on George Lombard because obviously, he needed a little time to get his bat going. And I think that was the discussion in spring training this year coming out was we knew George Lombard Jr. could field. That was not a question, but he needed to be more consistent at the plate. And through both teams so far, in the couple of games he's played at AAA and most of the time with you guys this year, 313, 4 homers, 10 RBI. What did you see that was different from him this year as opposed to how he was struggling last year?
I mean, there's one big change. He made a tweak to his batting stance where the hands are a little bit lower. It's more of a direct path to the ball. And that's something that when George first got to Somerset this year, he's very self-aware of what the flaws were last season, right? There was a lot of strikeouts. He was struggling to hit the high fastball. So he went to work as soon as last season ended. He told us that he went and worked with the Yankees director of hitting, Jarrett DeHart, down in Miami with his personal hitting coach, Ricardo Sosa, and they wanted to understand his body, understand his swing, what were the holes, what was working for him, what felt natural, what didn't. So the long story short is, he put in the work to recognize that there were some changes in that stance and the mechanics of his swing that needed to be made. And, they've paid off in a major way this year. And again, that's on top of the fact that I think if you have good enough work ethic and good enough kind of, an ability to handle yourself and handle the adversity that comes with the failures that comes with 100 games at Double A, which George does, I think that, the results are going to come. And I think that the biggest difference on the field this year, outside of that swing change, was just that he's been hitting the ball so hard. Every at bat has been fantastic. It was feel like he got to a 3-2 count almost every at bat. But then when he swings the bat, and it felt like it was over 100, 105 miles an hour exit velocity every time. So that was another
His
thing we
first
talked
hit, his
about.
first hit in AAA was 100 miles an hour opposite field in the hole between second and first. So yeah, that's what's working for him.
Yep. I mean, he puts the bat on the ball, it's going to be hit hard. And it's just a testament to the work ethic. And you hear these stories sometimes, like when Cam Schlittler came back here last year, he ended the season in Somerset 2024. He put on 15, 16 pounds of muscle, and then he was throwing harder. For George, that wasn't necessarily the case this year. He maybe gained, 5 pounds of muscle, if anything, but it was the work that he put in to know that he needed to get better. And he said to us before the season that he wasn't concerned about the power and putting on muscle because you just continue to put good at bats together. It's going to come, and it definitely did to start this year.
So Stephen, like when I covered the minor leagues, I covered the Brooklyn Cyclones in their first season. 2001, I covered the minors, bounced around for a few years before, covering the major leagues. Uh, one of my great thrills was always getting to know the managers. And I know that as part of your duties as the play-by-play guy there, you're also doing a lot of content creation and doing a lot of stuff all season long with Somerset. Do you get the opportunity to sit down with the managers and as they come and go and develop relationships with them, to kind of lengthen your understanding of the roster and who gets to play and who doesn't get to play? Is that something that you get the opportunity to do down there?
Absolutely. And it's been really, rewarding to see. My first year here was 2022. Our manager that year was Dan Fiorito. He's the first base coach for the Yankees now. And I think something that goes overlooked in the minor leagues is, everyone is focused on the player development aspect, and that's, first and foremost. But the Yankees develop coaches too. Dan Fiorito's up there. Jake Hurst was our hitting coach. He's up there as the Yankees assistant hitting coach now. And to see the kinds of people that are shaping the talent and kind of passing down the messages, I guess affiliate wide, organization wide for the Yankees goes beyond the manager. But somebody like James Cooper, who's the Somerset manager this year, great example. I mean, it's his fifth year in the Yankee system. He's just like one of the players where he's gone up a level each year. He went to the rookie ball, single A, high A, and now he's in Somerset this year. And he's a guy that has a really bright future as a major league coach one day. And like you said, to get a better understanding of what everybody's objectives are, what they're working on, and that sort of stuff, it's so valuable to have that relationship with the manager. And even beyond that, the rest of the coaches, the coordinators that stop by, getting to know them over these last 4+ seasons has been awesome because, what the players are telling you is one thing, but what the coaches and the coordinators are seeing is another thing. And I think it's important to have both sides of that perspective for added context.
Right, and it adds to the broadcast because you could say, I talked with James Cooper today, and we were talking about just that thing where he needed to go to his left more or whatever. It really adds a lot of content to the broadcast that you wouldn't normally get if you were just a play-by-play guy that never went down into the dugout.
For sure. And the little anecdotes you hear of, a guy like on our team, Marco Luciano, he's got some games with big league time. And the conversations you have with James Cooper about, how difficult is it to work with somebody that, has been there before and wants to get back, and now they're back at Double A, to hear the perspective of how those kinds of situations are handled. And it also speaks to the character of somebody like Marco, who's here handling himself in a really strong, positive way. So it goes beyond even the storytelling aspect, and just it adds context to who all of these guys are beyond, what they're doing on the field, which is so great. The relationships are the most important thing about calling, especially minor league baseball games, but I would say baseball in general.
Steven, you got some time on Yes last night. Carlos Rodon made a rehab start, and with the Yankees not playing, you and your team got to be on Yes last night. I thought Rodon looked really good. Sounds like he's going to be very, very close to coming back. You've also, this year, you've seen Anthony Volpe play, and Garrett Cole pitched this week. Take us through those three guys and how close do you think they might be to getting back to the Bronx?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with Volpe because his rehab assignment started first. He's on a 20-day rehab clock that ends on Sunday. So by the end of this weekend, the Yankees are going to have to make a decision. And he's been playing in full games. He's played in three straight games where he's gotten all 9 innings in, or seven for one of the doubleheader games. But for Volpe, obviously, it's a question of how do you play that, roster management with Jose Caballero's done a great job at shortstop. I think that obviously Anthony's going to go back up there. Probably, I think the expectation would be during this homestand for the Yankees, assuming that everything feels right for him, which he has said everything's feeling good. So I feel like he's definitely very close. And then, we've heard Aaron Boone say in the past couple weeks that Carlos Rodon a little bit ahead of schedule from Cole. I think they both feel really good, but even just hearing from Rodon after yesterday's game, he was asked a question like, "Do you feel you're ready?" And he said, "I'm not going to say no, but I'll be up there basically whenever they need me." He wants to be out there helping his teammates, but 75 pitches last night. I think at this point for Rodon, it's more so a matter of getting that arm stretched out a little more. So if anything, maybe one more. He threw, I think, 10 more pitches than he did the last time out. So he's pretty much there. And we saw how great he looked in that game. 8 strikeouts, no walks. Like you're ready to get back up there. Garrett Cole, obviously Tommy John is a little more complicated. It's a longer rehab assignment. He's been very adamant about taking the full 14 to 18 month recovery timeline and hopefully coming back by June. So I think it could be probably a few more rehab starts for Cole, but even looking at his comfortability, the way he was able to, focus on what objectives he had to do with, different pitches and what he wanted to accomplish. He's definitely ahead of schedule for somebody at this point in the Tommy John timeframe, but probably the least far along from those three.
And Steve, you said a few minutes ago that the fans in Somerset have been excited, and they're always excited to see the major leaguers have their rehab assignments down there at Double A. It wasn't that long ago that Somerset was an independent team playing in the Atlantic League, and being here on Long Island, had a chance to see Long Island Ducks play Somerset. For the most part, how have the fans? Because not everybody in Somerset is a Yankee fan. How has the community adapted to the Patriots now being the Yankee affiliate as opposed to when they were an independent team?
Yeah, it's interesting because I got here the second year of the affiliation, but a lot of our front office has been here since the very beginning. So I've gotten to see the way that things have kind of changed. And there's still a lot of long-standing fans that have been season ticket holders and, members in the community for, decades here in Somerset, watching guys that, went on to play big league games from the indie ball days in the Atlantic League. But I think we've definitely started to see kind of two fan bases blend together where there are a lot of Yankee fans in, Central Jersey, and there's a lot of just baseball fans, right? Where we play the Mets affiliates, the Phillies affiliates. There's a lot of these, fans that come out of the woodworks, realizing that there's really good talent here at Double A, and the fact that it's such an easy ballpark to get to. The biggest difference, I feel like the longer I've been here, the more pinstripes I'm starting to see around the ballpark, where, there's a lot of Somerset Patriots gear, obviously. I think the alternate identities are something that have really separated Somerset as well, where, we wear the Jersey Diners and the Zorros, and we're going to be the Somerset semi-quincentennials this year to celebrate America's 250th. So that's the kind of like minor league fun stuff that has evolved from the independent days, but then you get the added bonus of extremely high quality baseball and fans in New Jersey and surrounding areas like New York that really care about that high quality baseball. And, they want to go see George Lombard Jr. before he's in Scranton or see Carlos Rodon while it's a little cheaper and easier to get to Bridgewater than it might be in the Bronx. So it's been a nice blend of seeing fans here for a long time and then obviously seeing them migrate here because they're still learning that Somerset's a Double A affiliate.
Uh, Two things before we let you go, Stephen. One time when Somerset was an independent franchise and Sparky Lyle was a manager, I actually tried out for Somerset. This is years ago. It's like 20 years ago, undercover. I knew at that time, I knew some of the guys in Somerset that worked in PR. And I said, look, I'm doing a story for Gotham Baseball and I want to try out because I had done it. I had done it with the Cyclones in 2001. So I figured it would be fun again, this prospect trying out for the team. It was a publicity stunt, but it was a lot of fun. But the thing is there was this kid that was wearing a St. John's University uniform, like a full uniform. And he was hitting bombs. He must have hit about 4 or 5 home runs over the wall. And I remember talking to Sparky Lyle after the tryout. And he was like, yeah, we're not signing any of these guys. And to me, like my takeaway was that kid was so good, and he didn't even have a shot at an independent team. That just tells you like how good you have to be, to sign a professional contract. And the other thing is that um, how how interesting, or did you get a chance to see how the players on the roster interacted with the big leaguers like Volpe and Cole and Rodon? Because it's got to be a thrill for them, to see these big leaguers come into the clubhouse. Did you get to witness any of that?
Yeah, a lot of times, in the post game comments that people ask, who are some of the guys that maybe walked up to you, ask you some questions. It's little things here and there. Everybody just kind of wants to sort of be a fly on the wall and just not disrupt anybody's routine, right? Starting pitchers, very meticulous about the routines. Nobody wants to get in Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon's way, but sure, there's little things that come up here and there. And I think in a situation like with Anthony Volpe is a better example because he's played, I think, 6 rehab games with Somerset now, and he played all of those, almost all of them, alongside George. And I was talking to James Cooper, a manager, about how valuable it is for Volpe and Lombard to work together. And he said for George, getting those reps, not just on the field, but when they're in the weight room, when they're in the cages, when they're eating lunch, just the little nuances of picking little things up, the little conversations that happen. There's a lot of that goes on, and especially I would say with the position players, but even with the pitchers, like we have Kyle Carr, who's one of the Yankees' top prospects here. During spring training, he was a non-roster invite, and he was working on a new pitch out there, the curveball, and he said that he had Garrett Cole and Max Fried watching his bullpen, giving him little, words of wisdom and critiques on how to refine that pitch a little bit. So that's an example from spring training and an example from during the season where I feel like a lot of these guys they have a good feel for when to interject, when to ask questions. But from everything I've seen, we've had a lot of rehabbers here in Somerset. They're always very happy to help the next generation because they recognize, and when they come back into this ballpark that seats just over 6,000 people, it takes them back to when they were in Double A and when they were that kid that wanted to be the next Garrett Cole or be the next Anthony Volpe. So it's a great relationship, and it starts in spring training where these guys get to know each other so well.
And it's a great ballpark. And Stephen, you'll remember this. But first of all, I went first to Somerset to see a Ducks game a number of years ago. But I went with my family a couple of years ago. And Steve, you'll remember this. I threw out the first pitch at the game. We were at a game between Somerset and Binghamton because the rest of my family are Met fans. So that was the game we picked, and I got asked to throw out the first pitch. It was a little high. So I'm kind of hoping at some point in the future I can get another shot at it.
Oh yeah, we got to get you back here to throw a strike for sure. Right down the middle.
Listen, I'm going to try. I wanted to pitch. I wanted to throw it off the mound. I was practicing for 2 weeks to throw the first pitch, and then I was told the grounds crew wouldn't let me go on the mound, so I had to throw it from in front. I had too much oomph on it.
Yep, it makes sense. You gotta get those reps in.
Well, Stephen, look, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
No, I was going to do the same thing you were going to do. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great, following your calls on social and seeing the Yankee prospects, come through and seeing the rehab guys there too. And we hope we can have you on again, later in the season, get an update on how some of the other Yankee prospects are coming along.
Of course, it was awesome for you guys to have me, and I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you pretty soon here.
Thanks,
Absolutely,
Steven. Really appreciate you, buddy.
Stephen Cusumano, the voice of the Somerset Patriots, the Yankees Double-A affiliate, and they've been all over the news recently with Anthony Volpe, Garrett Cole, and Carlos Rodon, all having rehab starts. And by the way, Mark, speaking of the big club, the Yankees are back home this weekend to open up a series with an old friend of yours, Pete Alonso, and the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, look, Pete's not off to a great start. I certainly look. I knew Pete was leaving. I didn't really. I'm not as broken up as like let's say Jack Healy is. He loved Pete. I enjoyed Pete too. Look, I'm more always. I'll always appreciate everything Pete did for the franchise, but I had a feeling that he was going to leave and they weren't going to bring him back. So. Look, I wish him all the best. Nimmo's the guy. Brandon Nimmo's the guy I really miss, and now he's on the injured list. So, it's look. Like I said in the opening of the show, Peter. The Yankees have a lot of great baseball left ahead of them. They're probably going to win the AL East, and I just hope the Mets figure out a way to get to Memorial Day at least with a pulse. That's
Yeah.
what I'm hoping for.
Well, Somerset might have a couple other Yankees coming down there soon because Jason Dominguez and Giancarlo Stanton are both injured right now. So Stephen Cusumano might get
Right.
to see Jason Dominguez come back to Somerset, and Stanton has been down there before, so he could be making a return trip.
Yeah, he was great. It was great to have him on, and it's always great to get that perspective from the guys who do a lot of that great work down in the minor league system. Peter, great seeing you again, and looking forward to next week when we do this again, buddy. Have a great weekend.
Absolutely, Mark. Had a blast.